All right, perfect. We still have quite a bit to talk about. So, I'm interested in, you're a coach, you're a health coach. I'm interested. There's a lot of people moving to a platform called School. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. School by Sam
Absolutely.
Ovens.
Mhm.
You've heard of it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, have you joined?
Not yet. It's in the works. I have so much other back end stuff that I'm doing that I'm just like, I can't justify going into a whole nother platform at the moment. Still working on marketing and sales. So going into that, when I think that is better for a somewhat established audience. I don't have that yet. So as I move into it, I will. But as far as I'm aware, School doesn't have that same level of putting things out there and getting in front of people like Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook Reels have. So I'm going to build that audience and then probably convert over to there maybe eventually. But School is better for like courses. I like working with people one-on-one.
Got it. With the one-on-one thing, a lot of coaches and consultants are more on, they like, I'm not saying you don't think about this, but they think, how can I scale this? Eventually, you'll probably get to a point where you're like, how can I scale and get to the next level? Because if I really want to make money with limited amount of time, 100 units, how can I scale? And courses are the method for that.
They are,
Do
and
you
it's
do?
probably something I'll look into in the future. But right
Okay.
now, my scaling is through sharing my knowledge on like my podcasts, I do live trainings, and I'm allowing all the knowledge that I have to be put out there so that people can use it. I've gotten a few people saying like, "Hey," and these are people I've never worked with one-on-one that they'll just message me like, "Hey, I took some of your advice and I lost like 20 pounds," or "My gut issues have gotten a little bit better," or something positive results from it. And that's not from a course. That's just from me putting out the information. And it's like, of course, we always want to make money. We always want to be able to scale and grow our businesses to help as many people as possible. But like, that's what the podcast is for. That's what the Facebook groups are for. That's what the Instagram reels are for. The one-on-one coaching is more of like the accountability aspect. So I can put out the courses, and I do think there's some accountability to that because someone's paying for it. So once you pay for something, you're instantly putting a value on it yourself, leading to a little bit more accountability. But I much prefer to work with people one-on-one because everyone's health is evolving as we go. So it's not something that can be as simple as following a course, especially when it comes to your health.
Got it. Yeah, I think I talked to someone. They said almost the exact same thing. I think it was a martial arts expert. He said you can't teach someone how to beat someone's ass through a computer screen. Like you just can't teach that over the computer. You have to do that physically in combat, like physically in person.
Yeah, and I agree. I used to do martial arts. I can't imagine ever buying a course on how to do martial arts, but similar concept. Yeah, so let's say I'm working with someone, they have some gut health issues. Like one of my clients, she came to me initially, she had her yeah, I can say it. She had her gallbladder removed, was having a lot of issues with her
I've had
gut.
my gallbladder removed.
See, so you should know, like
This
she
actually
had
might
so many,
be very important for me to know because I don't know. So I'm actually now dialed in 100%. All right. Sorry.
no, all good. So she had that removed, and there was a lot of trial and error to figure out what worked for her exactly. So again, of course, you can't do trial and error. There's when it comes to like solving health issues, there is a bit of detective work to it. So while I had like this huge list and library of recipes and resources that could help people like eat quicker, and I could give her these recipes, some of the recipes, in particular Greek yogurt, she couldn't consume it because there was the no gallbladder didn't allow her to digest the fat as well as she should. So this was causing issues. She was getting acid reflux, acne breakouts, and her skin wasn't where it should be. She was always suffering with that. So then we cut that out. We cut out all the dairy. most of the dairy. I think she still drinks raw milk on occasion. And then we spread out her meals, so she eats like 4 to 5 times a day because her lack of bile production makes it so large meals are difficult to digest. So doing that, we have alleviated a ton of the symptoms that she was having with her gut health. And again, I told you I can talk about gut health all day because by improving that, she reduced her acne, she got better sleep, she was feeling better than she ever had it ever, and she felt less hopeless than she had ever felt before. Because when she came to me, she felt like there was nothing anyone could do for her. She felt like she had gone on YouTube, she had done some research on her own and didn't know where to start to make herself feel better. But I was able to help her put those pieces together, and now she doesn't have any issues with digestion. Now she lives a normal life. It doesn't bother her anymore. She had her gallbladder removed. She feels great. She is following some exercise programs I laid out for her, and she's developing the body she wants. Like, she came to me for gut health issues, and now she's becoming stronger than she's ever been before.
So for me, someone who's got my gallbladder removed, how important is gut health to me?
Incredibly important. I mean, it's important for everyone.
Yeah, well, like more important because I know there's I'm not gonna lie, I haven't done a lot of research, which I probably should. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't put my attention to that, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people out there who's had their gallbladder removed from their body, and they're just like, okay, I'm just gonna continue life normally. Some people it affects immediately. Some people it doesn't affect immediately. Like for me, I don't think personally I've had any problems that I know of, like specifically. I'm pretty sure there might be something there that's just not showing yet, maybe. So,
Well, that
what?
depends on what your diet looks like.
I wouldn't say it's the greatest, but it's better than it used to be. It's better. Like I said on your post, I think I don't consume alcohol and I don't drink caffeine anymore. So those are the two good things of my diet.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I don't really eat that many sweets either. I eat like one piece of chocolate a week, possibly. I try to get down to one piece of chocolate a week. I do still consume dairy, so I don't know if I probably should stop that immediately.
It depends, and how does dairy make you feel? So one of the things, again, going to detective work, maybe you can consume dairy and it doesn't have any effect on you. That's entirely based on the bacteria that live in your gut and the kind of enzymes they produce that help you break down the food you eat. But as far as like not having a gallbladder, what that does is it limits your bile production. And bile is released by your gallbladder to digest fat. So if you are having like a diet that is higher in fat, you are going to get a lot of fermentation of the meat in your stomach because it can't digest properly. It's going to lead to probably acne. It's going to lead to bloating, low energy levels because your body's trying to digest food that it's struggling to digest. Because you do produce some bile, but your gallbladder produces like 90% of it.
So, with that being said, I got this Oura ring, right? Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with the Oura ring?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This told me that I should not eat any foods because I'm kind of focused on my health, not like 100%, not like spending hours and hours a day, but I'm trying to do better, like at least every month, something I can do better every month. I got this Oura ring. It told me that I am eating before bed, and that's bad. I never knew that eating right before bed was bad for you.
Yeah, and it's something that no one ever talks about, but it is absolutely bad for you. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, there's a lot of debates in the health community. Everyone is going to tell you, yeah, it's not ideal to eat before bed. And this is because sleeping is an active process. And no one ever talks about that specifically. But what we do while we sleep is we turn off some systems in our body and put a lot of energy focus towards our recovery aspects. There is a entire system in our brain called the glymphatic system. It's like lymphatic, but with a G in front of it. And it only operates while we're sleeping. Like it doesn't operate at all while we're awake. And So by diverting energy from our recovery process, our repair process into digesting, we are disturbing our sleep. We're not getting as active recovery as we should. And even if we're sleeping 8 hours, maybe only 4 of that is actually spent on recovering. As opposed to if you didn't eat, 7.5 of that is spent on recovering. So like you are limiting your body's ability to recover and repair itself from the assault that it is living in modern day.
I got a lot of work to do. That's all I got to say. I have a lot of work to do. Even when you think you're doing enough, you're not doing enough. So
I feel manic about it. So yeah, I get it.
I'm curious, what aspects are you like when you're working with someone one-on-one, what do you help them with?
It's so dependent on what their problem is. If I'm working on someone that's say weight loss, I'm helping them with lifestyle habits for increasing the calories out.
Okay.
And making the calories in feel more satiating so they're not starving.
Got it. Yeah, because lately, the reason I asked that question is lately I've been really needing some. Well, what's the best way to say this? I'm a big fan of Andrew Tate. I'm gonna put that out there. I think for anyone who follows me, you're gonna notice that I mention Andrew Tate a lot. I didn't go bald because I like Andrew Tate. Like I did this because I was on a show, but also after being on the show, I noticed that I'm literally saving $65 every 2 weeks and like 3 hours every 2 weeks by just buzzing my own hair.
I do my own hair too.
Yeah, so quick hack: if you want to save money and if you want to save time, just cut your own hair and buzz it off. Like I don't think you need hair anyways.
Bro, I'm so upset about how expensive haircuts are for men. It makes no sense.
But Andrew Tate, he's big on personal development, training, stuff like that, right? He says, work out, do combats, physical combats. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I've really been tested at my job lately. I'm a bartender, but I also manage the bars. I manage the bar certain days of the week. Specifically, this Monday, like literally a couple days ago, a guy walks into the bar. Like this isn't a joke. Like normally the joke starts with a guy walks into a bar, but a guy literally walked into the bar, and I watched him come in because I'm like standing there just kind of like monitoring the bar. I see the door guy check this specific guy in. He like literally dabs him up too. So I'm like, okay, must be a like pretty chill, cool guy. I go off to the front of the bar, and I'm like just standing there while the bartenders are making drinks. I'm just chilling. I have a notebook in my a notepad in my hand. Guy stands next to me, so I'm in front of the main well, and he's right like a good 6 feet beside me. I can feel him looking at me. He's literally like, I feel his presence like just like looking at me. So I was like, maybe he wants to come right here to order a drink. So I move out of the way, kind of step like behind the bar slightly. He picks up our tip jar at the bar, grabs the jar. I feel like he's going to move it over. So I'm just kind of like watching him. We get those crazy customers that come in, they grab your tip jar, they like wave it in the air and stuff. So I'm like thinking maybe he's just going to wave the tip jar in the air. He deliberately picks it up, dumps it over. He's dumping all the tips out. Dumps all the tips out onto the counter. Grabs all the money, starts putting it in his pocket. It's like, what the? First, I can't even like believe that I'm like witnessing what I'm witnessing. Honestly, felt like I'm in some kind of simulation at this point, because I'm like, is this like? I never thought that I would be involved in like a robbery. So, the reason I say this is I have not been focusing on combat or working out, because all my focus has been on trying to build a business, working the job, working on time management, stuff like that. And I mentioned Andrew Tate. What's more important? What do you think is more important for a male out there? To go to the gym and work out and be physically strong, or to go learn a combat sport?
That depends entirely on the situation. I love both. Like, I've been in martial arts as a child. I love them both. But I mean, how much bigger was this guy than you? So even if you learn martial arts,
He was like, so I'm gonna stand up real quick. He was
yeah.
like, oh, you can't see. He was probably like this tall.
All right, so even if you could take him in a fight, you could beat his ass. What good is that going to do you in the situation? You beat his ass, that could lead to a bunch of liability issues, and don't get me wrong. That is, it's not your money. It is something it's for other people, but at the same time, beating his ass doesn't solve that problem. Looking intimidating prevents that problem. If you like,
Yeah. I don't look that. I'm not gonna lie. I don't look that intimidating. Well, with the bald head, I look slightly intimidating. With the bald head, I do give off that slight intimidation look. But so you're saying physically strong, looking more.
I love both. It's really hard to say because you never know what life's going to throw at you. Like,
Hey, first of all, what would you do in that situation? I'm curious.
I'm fairly decent at diffusing situations, so I would call over security as loud as I can, and then just try and have a conversation with this person and see where they're at mentally. Because if this person is crazy, again, it doesn't matter how intimidating you are. It doesn't matter if you know martial arts. If they have a weapon on them, that's irrelevant.
That's what I was thinking, because I was thinking this because I had a friend working at a bar or like a restaurant / bar back in my hometown, Victoria, Texas. He was a bouncer and he went to defuse the situation. He got physical with the guy. A few punches were thrown. The guy leaves, or they think he left. But what he was actually doing, he was waiting outside. And when the bouncer left the bar that day, he shot him and killed him. But all because it got physical, and the guy probably felt like his ego was hurt, and he wanted retaliation. But the norm is at the bar where I work at. The norm is, especially for bartenders. I made a post on Facebook. I literally said this. I said, so my bar got robbed the other day. This guy walks in, he dumps our tip jar out, and starts taking all our money. A few people said, well, why is your tip jar on top of the bar? I mean, why is it sitting on top of the bar? You should not have your tips on top of the bar. And some other comments were like, oh, I would have immediately beat his ass. That guy should have left in an ambulance. And so the norm is like, when someone's taking your tips, you need to get physical and just smash them. And for me, I feel like I could slightly be like, for me, I'm not gonna lie, for a week for Monday, Tuesday, all Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, I felt like I was being judged. Like, not that people were actually judging me, but like I was kind of judging myself, because I was like, man, should I have like thrown him to the ground? Should I punched him in the face? Like, did I do enough? So that's why I asked, what would you do? Because I'm just kind of curious. Like, other people out there might have a similar situations to deal with. This can happen not at a bar. This can happen anywhere. You could be walking down the street with your girlfriend and someone calls her the B word, and then now you gotta figure out what to do. So
I have a bit of confidence from, again, years of martial arts, lifting, and I grew up in very shady, I'll just put it as nicely as possible, the shady parts of New Jersey. And I've been in lots of situations similar to that, people getting robbed. And I have this uncanny ability, and this is not macho at all, I can diffuse a lot of situations. So in mine, I would make it as weird as possible, if that makes any sense. It's because, of course, you're going to get those reactions. You should beat his ass, or he could come back and he could kill you, so don't do anything. There is other options. We're humans. Approach it differently. Put out your hands. You're like, hey, my name is Drake, or my name is Marcos. Can I ask, how's your day going? That you're going to catch him completely off guard. he's not going to expect it. He's expecting you to say something and he's going to fight, or he's going to expect you to do nothing and he's just going to machismo his way out of there. If you're just like, hey, how are you doing today? You are going to catch him completely off guard and his demeanor is going to change. And I'm talking to it with like a friendly face, a smile. Because at the end of the day, it's something, and this is something I've learned coaching and helping people. We all kind of just want to be heard. And this guy looked like if he's just going there for tips, he's there for attention, he's there for money, and he's there for attention. Which, I mean, Andrew Tate does a lot of that himself, just in a different way. He gets his money and he gets attention.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, he's doing very similar, just in a different method. His methodologies aren't great, but approach it differently.
So my approach was immediately get between him and the tips and say, like I stopped him. He grabbed whatever he grabbed, and then I was like, I pushed him back, not like hard, but like I was like, hey, what are you doing? Pushed him back. And I said, give our money back. And then I held him there, like we not physically held him there, but we're like, hey, you're not leaving till you give us our money back. Mm-hmm. And I got multiple people involved, and the situation was de-escalated. He gave the money back. He left, but thank God it didn't go any worse than that, because it could have got worse. It could have been worse. So was my approach wrong? If he would have had a gun on him, was that approach wrong?
It's impossible to say. There's many what ifs. If everything was diffused, there's no other repercussions, then of course your situation was right. Could you have gotten it from a different way? Maybe. But we're talking about changing the past. It's already written.
Got it. And so what about the guy who's like, man, I didn't do anything and I should have done something, because like Andrew Tate talks about alpha masculinity, and I should do something about it. You know what I mean?
I love his core message of becoming a better version of yourself, working out, always striving to be the best version of yourself, doing the hard shit. But he approaches it like a dick, and that's not needed. I have met many alpha people in my life. I would never consider myself an alpha person in anywhere the same regard as Andrew Tate. But at the same time, people don't like to mess with what I'm doing. I'm somewhat successful in my business ventures. So it's hard to say. There's different approaches to life. Everyone's got a different cup of tea. If you want to be more like him, that's perfectly fine. He has a great core message, and I'm not going to detract from that at all. I do think that there is a bit of a pussification of men in our generation that needs to be corrected. I'm all for doing the hard shit and being a strong person. And I agree with that message of his.
Gotta love it. All right. Let's move on. A big thing about my brand is I'm sober. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I been sober for the last, I would say 15 months, going on 15 months. It was a very hard journey. It took a lot of like realization on what alcohol actually does to you. I didn't really look at it on the health side. I was looking at it more on the mental side. But I would like to get your feedback on alcohol. Like, what's your thoughts on that? What's your thoughts on like consuming alcohol?
That's with all drugs, just do it in moderation. But I've never been one that drank a lot. I gave myself alcohol poisoning at like 15. And now I just have this mental association with drinking that's just like, I want to puke every time I drink it.
Have you ever had to deal with addiction yourself, or anyone in your family deal with addiction?
Oh, half my family. Yeah, lots of it. And it's rough. It's so incredibly difficult. And I can't say I'm not without addiction. Just alcohol's never been my vice. I can definitely say I had an addiction to video games, like that compulsion to go play, to go escape from reality. And that's something I see common with all addicts, myself, family, friends. They get into their addiction because it helps them cope with the pain of reality. It helps them escape from the hardship that is life. And yeah, that's the most common theme amongst addiction. It's just that escapism.
Would you mind sharing in detail on that, or I don't know if you want to go into depth on that? Like, what did addiction to video games look like?
It looked like spending 10, 12 hours a day on video games, barely doing anything. And it came in the form of my 3-year-old daughter coming in my room, seeing me playing a video game. She came and said, "Can I ask you something?" She saw me playing a video game and said, "Never mind, your game is more important," and then went to go ask her mother. That's what addiction looked like.
Damn. And at what point did you realize that you were addicted? Was it like that moment, or did it take something else?
It's kind of one of those things. It's like when you see how many hours you've put into a video game and it's over 1,000 for a single video game, you kind of think, I might have a problem with this. But it was that point where it made me reflect, like, fuck, this isn't just affecting me. This is affecting people I care about. Like,
and just like addiction, just like all addictions, they affect the people you care about too.
Mm-hmm.
What was the turning point? What was like, hey man, what was that wake up call? Because everyone has a wake up call. For me, it was literally laying blacked out drunk, and people sending me photos of me just blacked out drunk, and I knew that. I was like, yo, I looked at that photo and I looked in the mirror and I was like, this is who I'm becoming. That was not my vision of myself. So what was that turning point for you, or that wake up call?
It wasn't a single moment. I would say it was getting into being an entrepreneur, being able to work for myself, and then scaling back from work in the hopes that I would do more for my own business, and realizing I was filling more of my time that I was away from, like, that work for video games instead of working on myself. And I was like, well, I need to scale back on video games because I need to work on my own business. I need to work on marketing and sales. I need to work on improving myself to make money. But I was not taking these steps. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to cut back an hour or 2 hours. I'm going to devote this time to working. And then I started seeing more results. So I was like, all right, that's good. Let me cut back even more. And then I started feeling the compulsions, like, I want to go play right now. Let me go play right now. I'm just going to play for like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And I'd like have these mental thoughts, just like, go play. It's only going to be 20 minutes. You can cut off. And then it'd be an hour and a half later and be like, I'm still playing. So it's like, I didn't do what I said I was going to do.
What game were you playing? Because I could lock into Call of Duty for hours.
Oh, I've got probably like well over 100 games in my Steam library. Could have been any RPG like Fallout or Skyrim or League of Legends. It could have been like so many games.
So you're playing online. You're playing with the desktop.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Were you streaming or just playing?
No, just playing.
Just playing. Honestly, if you were started streaming, you probably would have been able to keep playing.
Had that thought many times, just didn't do it.
But I know I've tried being a streamer too. I mean, it's a, like I said, whenever I said in the beginning that you can get sucked into the warp hole of what other people want you to do. I started streaming. That was actually even worse because YouTube content creation was bad on its own, because every video needed, like, every prank needed to be better than the last one. So I was getting more edgier and edgier and edgier and edgier. And the same with the streaming was worse because now I wasn't just like thinking for myself. Now other people were thinking for me too. They're like, oh, do this or do that, do this. And you just have to be some weird, goofy character online. And I was like, nah, this is not me.
Yeah, and that the one thing that like really turned it like off, I was like, I'm just not going to play video games anymore for a while, was again my daughter coming in and thinking that the video game was more important than anything she had to say. Like, and I was like, and I stopped her. I stopped the game. I was like, look, you are always more important than anything on the computer, than any video game. So never think that. But like, yeah, that was like one of those things. Like, fuck, I don't want her to have that image of me.
Whenever you think about playing video games, does that voice pop in your head? That your daughter's voice?
Sometimes, yeah. Don't get me wrong, I've kind of eased back into playing video games on occasion, but it's not nearly as much, and I still have that addictive tendency, and I'll see myself falling back into it. I'm just like, never mind, let me just uninstall it.
Yeah, because people have this weird notion that entrepreneurship needs to be strictly business. You need to just be locked in on business, and you can't have any fun. Like, there's a weird stigma. Like, an entrepreneur, you can't. Well, the way I see it is like, well, like, not me personally, but like, no fun, locked in on your business. If you have any fun, if you are out partying and stuff like that, then you're not trying to be successful and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think you can have a balance. If you balance it right, like you said, there can be a good balance between both.
Mm-hmm.
Dun, dun. All right, perfect. We're moving on pretty great. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, I've got about like 6 more minutes.
What's up?
I got about 6 more minutes before I got to
6. All right, we got to lock in. This has to be the best 6 minutes we can do. All right, I was gonna ask that question, but let me see if I have. Alcohol looking ahead. Perfecto. All right, so you're big into entrepreneurship. I'm big into entrepreneurship. Who has been that mentor that's really made an impact on your life? Where you're like, man, this guy, his content changed my life. If I wouldn't have stumbled upon him, I might still be playing video games.
Brandon Turner. I don't know if you're familiar with him from Bigger Pockets.
Hold up, Brandon Turner. The name sounds familiar.
He was the founder of one of the founders of the Bigger Pockets podcasts.
Okay.
And they are all about real estate, business, and money. And learning from that podcast and understanding that it was possible to make money not from a selling yourself for your hours type of way, but instead learning how to leverage your skills and money to make more money than you'd ever make working for anyone else.
Was there something specific on that podcast, like a specific message that that maybe was like that light bulb moment?
I was probably like not one single message. It was like the same one repeated 20 times. So they have a podcast. It was on real estate. And at the end of it, they'd always ask, what is the one book that you would recommend to everyone? And I would say out of like 100 guests, 80 of them recommended Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Ooh, okay.
And so I was like, all right, if everyone's recommending this, let me check it out. And I read that book and I was like, this is amazing. Like, there is an amazing takeaway from that of the 4 quadrants of being an employee, being self-employed, being or investing, and then like being the bank or whatever that 4th one is. It's been a while since I read it, but it really goes in depth into like how to leverage yourself, your assets to make more money, to understand how money works.
So I love that book. I love that book. I would actually, and I want to spend the last 6 minutes talking about that. Well, we probably have 5 minutes. I want to spend the last 5 minutes talking about that book. And the reason is I read that book. I have a personal, I'm gonna be a little vulnerable here. But back in 2023, I just quit YouTube. I was not doing anything for like 2 or 3 months. I was kind of just coasting. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna relax and kind of see where life takes me. I stumbled across that book because at that time I started doing 75 hard. It was the time I was trying to quit drinking. And before I actually quit drinking, I went out with one of my friends for this last time. We went to his house and I ended up doing cocaine. I ended up at his house partying, doing cocaine. And I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. As I was like, during this time, I was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so I had this bright idea that I was going to start a inflatable company. I don't know if you ever did cocaine before, but like just ideas start popping through your head. So I'm like chilling in my house. I'm calling my brother. I'm talking a random business idea with him. I know this guy that he has a party rental business. I'm like, man, I could start a party rental business. I'm just thinking of all these ideas are now going through my head. And Rich Dad Poor Dad, the reason why I went to the party rental business is because Rich Dad Poor Dad said you need assets, right? He's like, you need assets. And I was like, oh, what if I buy party rental business inflatables? Those are kind of like assets. So I spent 10 grand. This was 2020, 2022, 2023, going into 2023. It was like December 2022. I spent 10 grand. And turns out, I mean, the business could have worked for me, but I kind of, this was my like blunder. If we're talking chess, this was my blunder move because the inflatables were used. They weren't the greatest. I didn't even have a truck. Like I didn't even have a truck at the time. So now I have a storage unit and I have inflatables and I have no truck to distribute them to customers. And the reason why I'm telling that story and bringing it up, what'd you learn from the book?
Similar in that,
Okay.
Again, you want to view everything as assets and liabilities. That was like my biggest key takeaway in that if you want to have more money, you need to increase your assets and reduce your liabilities. And you need to start viewing everything in how much it costs you time-wise. So it's another big thing that I don't remember how he framed it in the book, but it was like, and I know I've heard him talk about it as well. He's like, if you want a car and the car payment's like $500 a month, go buy a house that cash flows $500 a month and then use that for the car payment. It's like, use your assets for your liabilities. Don't use your savings, because at the end of the day, you'll still have your assets, but the money can disappear.
Yep.
Something along those lines.
So I took all my liabilities away. Oh, don't have the car. Actually, if you look right, which way can I point? My camera's mirrored. So if you look right there, there's a scooter. I don't drive a car. I drive a scooter. I was actually going to call this podcast One Man in a Scooter, but it was too long, so I didn't decide to call it that. I'm just going to use my name. So my brother, he bought a house. And I tell him, like, after reading that book, I was like, you should not be buying this house. Instead of buying the house, put all your money into something. Bitcoin. I don't know. Maybe not Bitcoin, but put all your money into something to get to to make money so you can buy the house. He don't want to listen to me.
Buy a duplex, buy a triplex, so that way you can still live in it and rent out the other two. That's the key.
That'd be good.
That's how you do it. It's called house hacking. Again, bigger
but
pockets.
For someone who doesn't have a lot of money out there, what can they do to start getting assets? Like for someone who's probably working a job that can barely save $500 a week, how can they get ahead to the next level?
Don't worry about assets, external assets. There is one asset that you will have with you your whole life, yourself. So if you increase your skill level, if you increase your value, that is probably the single greatest thing you can do for your assets. I spent a ton of money myself on failed business ventures. I bought a real estate property without doing as much due diligence as I should have, and it bit me in the ass, and it cost me a ton of money. And I'm not broken on real estate, even though that house, I would say, I'm doing my taxes for this year, and over the past 3 years, it's cost me roughly, I think it was like 110,000, and it's brought me in like 80.
80 profit?
No. Like overall revenue. I don't even think it's at 80. It's probably at like 60, 70. I would have to do the math for the last 3 years, but overall revenue is like 70, and it's cost me like over 100. So like I'm in the negative on this, and it's all because of my failure to do the due diligence with it. But now the next house I buy, the next piece of real estate I buy, I know all these things. I have this knowledge now. I have this experience, so that I'm not going to be in the same position as I am with this. So when I get into more real estate deals, I can make more money. When I get into other businesses, I know how to structure it so that way there's less negatives. I have learned all these skills that have cost me a ton of time, a ton of money. But going forward, I am far more confident in any future deals or business I undertake.
So for the person who doesn't have a lot of money, you're recommending them just put all their money to investing in themselves.
Buy books. Best thing. $20.
Nice. All right.
Rich Dad Poor Dad. That's like $15. Go get it. Anything by Alex Hormozy. Go buy his books. They're cheap. They're amazing. Go buy some online courses in any skill you want to learn. You can, I think, have a subscription to Coursera for, I think, like $20, $30, maybe $40 a month. And you can get certifications in multiple things that are in IT and computing and start making $70, $80, $90,000 to start with certain certifications. And then you can bump up to like 100 to 200,000 with experience in those certifications. You are your most prized asset. Work on yourself first.
There you have it, guys. There you have it.
Mm-hmm.